Isabella was 6 years old when she first understood that something was wrong with her. She sat in the palace gardens, dissecting butterflies. The servants around her all shook in horror. Eleanor found her there, surrounded by corpses. Isabella's small hands covered in dust and blood.
Isabella, these creatures were beautiful when they were whole.
Eleanor whispered. From that moment forward, Eleanor made a promise to herself. She would protect Isabella. She would teach her sister that kindness was stronger than curiosity. For 15 years, Isabella wore the mask of goodness. A perfect performance learned by studying Eleanor's every gesture, every word, every expression of tenderness. She learned to smile when she wanted to scream. Then Eleanor was sent to marry the king as political tribute. 4 days after that, Eleanor's body was returned in a cold coffin. Winter snow falls so heavily it seems personal. Isabella stands in the palace courtyard, surrounded by her parents, as the coffin is unloaded from the carriage. The Duchess is already weeping. The Duke stands rigid, his face a stone mask. Isabella approaches the coffin. She asks the guards to open it. They refuse. Isabella's voice becomes quiet and absolute. Something in her tone suggests that she will tear it open herself if necessary. The lid creaks upward. For a moment, there is only silence. No one can process what they're seeing. Eleanor's face has been systematically destroyed. Each slash is precise. Each cut is placed to maximize both pain and permanent disfigurement. But the worst part is the hollowness. Where her organs should be, her heart, her lungs, her liver, her womb, there is only emptiness. The Duchess lets out a sound that is barely human. Isabella turns to her father.
Send me to marry the king.
For 6 months, Isabella becomes a weapon. An old servant who once worked in Hessian is brought to the palace. This woman, scarred by her own experiences, describes the king's torture chambers in grotesque detail. She describes the instruments. She describes the sounds. She describes the way the king watches, with the rapt attention of someone experiencing religious ecstasy. Isabella listens to every word. She also begins studying chemistry, using Eleanor's old medical texts as her laboratory manual. She learns which plants create dependence, which compounds are subtle enough to be undetectable in tea, which poisons kill slowly versus quickly. She learns that the king prefers women who are beautiful, but frightened. By the time Isabella is ready to leave for Hessian, she has become a masterpiece of deception. She can cry on command. She can tremble convincingly. She can make herself appear fragile and broken when she is actually harder than diamond. The departure comes on a cold spring morning. The Duke embraces his daughter at the gate, his eyes dead, understanding that he is losing another child. He says,
"If you are discovered..."
Isabella interrupts. "Then I will die. But not before I drag him into hell with me." She enters the carriage without looking back. The Hessian palace is a monument to darkness. Gargoyles crouch on every corner, their stone mouths open in eternal screams. The gates are made of black iron forged into the shapes of writhing serpents. Isabella steps out of the carriage, and the temperature seems to drop. Lady Margot is waiting in the receiving chamber. She is in her mid-30s, beautiful in the way poison flowers are beautiful, alluring on the surface, lethal beneath. Margot circles Isabella slowly.
"So, you're Eleanor's sister."
Isabella's heart rate accelerates. Margot was there. Margot watched Eleanor die. Isabella's voice trembles perfectly.
"I am. I hope I can serve the king as well as my sister did."
Margot's smile is a knife.
"Your sister served him very well. Too well. He grew bored with her. He said her screams became repetitive by the 4th day."
Isabella forces herself to maintain composure. Margot continues, her voice dripping venom.
"She lasted 4 weeks before they brought her back in a coffin. The king told me her final hours were particularly beautiful. She had stopped screaming by then. She had no voice left. She could only weep."
Margot leans closer.
"I wonder if you'll break faster or slower than she did. I wonder if you'll scream or simply weep. I wonder if..."
Isabella interrupts, her voice small and frightened.
"When will I meet the king?"
Margot laughs.
"Tonight. He specifically requested to see you immediately. He said he was curious about Eleanor's replacement."
Margot leads Isabella to her chambers and leaves her alone. Isabella stares at the walls and realizes she is now in the palace where Eleanor died. She is now in the place where her sister's beautiful voice was turned into animal screams. She whispers,
"I will make him pay, Eleanor. I swear it, even if it takes my entire life."
Evening falls. Isabella is brought to the royal bathing chamber by servants who move silently. The chamber is filled with steam from perfumed water. Candles burn in every corner. The entire room smells like exotic flowers and something darker, something like rot beneath petals. Isabella undresses and enters the bath. She waits. King Marcus enters. He is in his mid-50s, his face scarred, his eyes containing depths of darkness, that he circles the bath.
You're Eleanor's sister.
The king crouches beside the bath.
Your sister was remarkably brave. It took her a long time to break. She fought, she screamed, she begged.
He reaches into the water and touches Isabella's hair.
Do you know what I learned from Eleanor's suffering?
Isabella shakes her head. The king leans close.
I learned that beauty is only truly beautiful when it's broken. That the human body is only interesting when it's been pushed past its breaking point.
He pulls her close and whispers,
I'm going to break you, Isabella, but not yet. First, I'm going to show you what I created with your sister.
He kisses her forehead. The next morning, Isabella wakes to find a summons waiting. She reads it with trembling hands. A servant arrives at her chambers.
The king summons you! Tonight! He has prepared his private chambers!
Isabella's heart rate accelerates. This is the moment. This is when everything begins. She walks through the palace corridors toward the king's chambers, knowing that what happens tonight will set the entire chain of events in motion.
The king's private chambers are at the top of a tower reached by narrow stone stairs. As Isabella climbs, she feels like she is descending into something, not ascending. Each step takes her deeper into darkness. The king waits on a balcony overlooking the entire empire. He is naked, his scarred body illuminated by candlelight. He turns when Isabella enters.
I want to show you something.
He leads her to a window that overlooks the palace grounds. In the distance, barely visible in the darkness, is the entrance to the underground dungeons.
Down there is where I keep my collection. Down there is where your sister spent her final days. Down there is where you will eventually go when I grow bored with you.
He pulls her close.
But that won't be for a long time. You're too beautiful to break quickly. I plan to savor you.
He kisses her, and Isabella allows herself to respond with apparent passion, while internally calculating everything: his vulnerability, his patterns, his dependence. That night, as he sleeps, Isabella examines his chambers. She finds journals detailing his torture methods. She finds sketches of the instruments. She finds his own confessions written in his own hand, descriptions of Eleanor's suffering that are almost loving in their precision. She reads about Eleanor's final moments and feels her heart harden further. Isabella begins to prepare the tincture.
The next morning, Isabella asks the king if she can see the underground chambers. The king is pleased. He says it suggests she is adapting to him, accepting her fate. He takes her down stone stairs into darkness so complete it seems solid. Torches line the walls, burning with an eerie green flame. As they descend, sounds grow louder, screams, moans, the unmistakable sounds of human suffering. They reach a vast underground space, and Isabella's breath catches. The chamber is lined with victims in various states of torture. Some are missing limbs, some are covered in burns arranged in deliberate patterns. Some are arranged on apparatus that suggest methods of suffering so elaborate they must have taken years to design. The king says,
I collect people, broken people, people who have refused to obey, people who have tried to deceive me, people I simply find interesting.
He points to a corner.
That's from the rival noble family. I took her when her father refused to submit. She's been here for 3 years. She's quite useful now.
Isabella stares at the woman and sees Eleanor looking back at her. The king leads her to a private chamber decorated with silk and wine and candles, like a lover's nest built inside a tomb.
I come here sometimes to think, to enjoy myself, to listen to the symphony of suffering just beyond these walls.
He embraces Isabella.
Soon, you'll be here too. When you finally break, when you finally understand that resistance is futile, we'll spend our time here together.
Isabella whispers, I'm terrified. The king says,
Good. Terror is the only honest response to what's coming.
They return to his chambers. That night, Isabella adds the tincture to his tea. 3 weeks pass. Isabella makes love to the king while administering the tincture each night in his tea. She learns to read his moods, his patterns, his vulnerabilities. The king becomes obsessed. When Isabella is absent, he becomes anxious, unable to focus on state business. His hands shake, his mind races. He cannot eat. He cannot sleep. When Isabella is present, he experiences euphoria so intense it borders on religious ecstasy. He gives her jewelry. He gives her titles. He speaks of making her empress. Margot watches from the shadows, her face growing harder. One night, Isabella finds Margot waiting in the corridor.
You've done something to him. What have you done?
Isabella's voice is innocent. I don't know what you mean. Margot grabs her arm.
You're making him dependent on you. I can see it. The way he trembles when you're not in the room. the way he can barely function without you.
Isabella meets Margot's eyes. Perhaps he simply loves me. Margot's laugh is bitter.
Love is for people who can afford it. In this palace, attachment is a weapon, and you're wielding it perfectly.
Margot leans close.
But understand this, girl. When he grows tired of you, when the novelty wears off, he will destroy you, and I will watch from my tower and smile.
Isabella says, I'm counting on it. Isabella announces she is pregnant. The king's reaction is explosive. He weeps, he laughs, he pulls her close and holds her like she might dissolve.
A son. You will give me a son.
Isabella thinks of Eleanor's lost child, the prince that was torn from her womb. She thinks of the cruelty required to do such a thing. She allows the king to make love to her while she is pregnant. She allows him to worship at the altar of what she is carrying. She allows him to believe that this child will be their dynasty. But internally, she is calculating. A child is leverage. A child means security. A child means she cannot be removed without destroying the succession. But one day, as she takes a walk in the grand garden looking at peonies, the miscarriage happens suddenly. Blood, pain, the end of hope. Isabella faints in her own blood.
Isabella wakes in the night with cramps that radiate from her center. She staggers to the chamber pot and sees the evidence of her deliberate action. She has taken the herbal mixture that Eleanor taught her about years ago, a concoction designed to trigger miscarriage. She chose the timing carefully. She chose it when the king was emotionally invested, but not yet dependent enough on the child's existence. When the king learns the news, something breaks in him. He comes to Isabella's chamber and finds her pale, tears streaming. He holds her. He weeps with her. He whispers that they will have another child. They will have dozens of children. But Isabella sees something shift in his eyes. Calculation, suspicion. Over the next week, the king becomes increasingly paranoid. He asks the physicians why the pregnancy failed so suddenly. He asks if there were signs he missed. He asks if Isabella had eaten something unusual. He summons the royal apothecary and shows him the vial of tincture that Isabella takes for her headaches.
What is this exactly? I need a complete analysis. Every component, every possible effect.
The apothecary examines it carefully.
Your Majesty, this is remarkably complex. The components are not from standard Hessian medicine. Some of these herbs are from the Eastern Territories. I will need time to properly analyze each element. Perhaps 3 or 4 days.
The king nods, but his eyes are cold. For the first time, Isabella sees him looking at her with suspicion instead of love. 3 days pass like years. Isabella spends them in a state of controlled panic, hidden beneath a mask of fragile recovery. She moves through the palace slowly, as though her body is still healing. She allows the king to care for her, to bring her tea, to help her walk, to hold her when she is weak. She performs the role of a devastated woman grieving her lost child perfectly. But internally her mind is racing. She calculates escape routes. She considers whether she has enough poison left to kill him outright if it comes to that. On the 3rd day, the apothecary requests a private meeting with the king. Isabella watches from a hidden corner as the apothecary enters the king's study. She cannot hear their conversation, but she sees the apothecary's face when he exits pale, troubled, his hands shaking slightly. An hour later, the king summons Isabella. She enters his chambers and immediately knows. She can see it in his face. He knows. The king stands facing the window, his back to her. His voice is cold, controlled.
The apothecary has completed his analysis.
Isabella's heart rate accelerates, but she keeps her breathing steady. She says nothing. The king turns around. On the table between them are papers, the apothecary's analysis, and the vial of tincture. The king asks,
Did you poison me?
Isabella's response is instantaneous. Yes. The king's face goes through rapid transformations. Confusion, rage, betrayal.
Take her to the dungeons. Execute her for treason against the crown.
But Isabella stands calmly. Her voice cuts through the chaos. Your Majesty, wait. The guards pause. Even in his rage, the king respects her boldness. He looks back at her. If you execute me, yes, the poison will leave your system. Over the next few weeks, maybe a month, your body will adjust. But what will happen to your mind? The king's face is a mask of rage, but Isabella sees the crack of doubt in his eyes. You have become dependent on my presence. Not physically, there is no addiction in the traditional sense. But psychologically, you have woven your entire sense of well-being around my existence. When I am not present, you become anxious. When I am gone, you cannot focus on matters of state. When I return, you experience euphoria. The king stares at her. Isabella's voice becomes almost tender. Unless you forgive me, unless you choose to love me anyway, unless you accept that you are bound to me for the rest of your life. The king looks at his own hands.
Leave us.
The guards hesitate.
Leave us.
When they are gone, the king sinks into a chair. His voice is almost a whisper.
Why? Why did you do this?
Isabella sits across from him. Her voice is steady, clinical. Because Eleanor was good. Eleanor was kind. Eleanor was everything beautiful in this world. And you destroyed her. You kept her in your chamber of horrors. You watched her break. And you enjoyed it. She leans forward. I wanted you to feel what she felt. I wanted you to experience absolute dependence on someone you couldn't control. I wanted you to understand that your entire sense of self could be taken away in an instant. The king looks at her with eyes that are devastated. You have two choices. Execute me, and spend the rest of your life clawing at the walls of your own mind, desperate for something you cannot name. Or forgive me. Accept that you belong to me. Accept that you will spend the rest of your life trying to repay a debt that can never be paid. The king stares at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he stands and walks toward her. He doesn't attack her. He doesn't call for the guards. Instead, he kneels in front of her and speaks the words that will seal his fate.
I will make you empress. I will give you my throne. I will do whatever you ask. Just promise you won't leave me.
Isabella looks down at him, this powerful man, now broken, on his knees before her. She reaches down and touches his face. She says, I promise.
2 weeks later, preparations for the coronation begin. The king throws himself into the arrangements. He commissions gowns from the finest seamstresses in the empire. He designs a crown specifically for her. The court watches in shock. A foreign bride, married barely weeks ago, is about to become empress. Isabella watches the preparations with a strange sense of detachment. She is about to become the most powerful woman in the empire. She has achieved her goal. And yet, something inside her feels hollow. She receives a letter from her mother. It has been months since she left home. The letter contains 3 words. Are you safe? Isabella holds the letter for a long time before burning it in the fireplace. On the day of the coronation, Isabella dresses in the gown designed specifically for her. It is made of white silk so fine it's almost transparent, embroidered with pearls and diamonds that catch the light. When she enters the throne room, the entire court holds its breath. The king stands waiting, his eyes filled with something that looks like love, but feels like drowning. He places the crown on her head himself. The diamonds catch the light, casting rainbow reflections across the marble floor. The king speaks the ancient words.
My name is Isabella, Empress of Hessian. Her word is law.
The court cheers, thousands of voices rising in what sounds almost like worship. But Isabella feels only the weight of the crown. It is heavier than she expected. And as she looks out at the celebrating courtiers, she realizes something that chills her. She has become what she hated. She has become a person capable of manipulation.
News of Isabella's coronation reaches Lady Margot in her tower chamber. A servant brings her the information with unusual care. The king's former mistress has learned that her rival is now empress. The servant watches nervously for Margot's reaction, afraid that the beautiful woman might shatter with rage. But Margot simply closes her eyes and laughs, a laugh so bitter it sounds like breaking glass. She walks to the single narrow window of her tower chamber and looks out at the palace below. She can see the celebrations continuing, the lights, the music, the dancing. Margot whispers to herself,
So the girl has won. She has become what I could never be.
But even as she says it, Margot realizes something. She is still alive. She is still in the tower, but she is alive. The king could have executed her. Instead, he has allowed her to live, forgotten in her tower room. Over the following days, Margot begins to piece together what has happened. A servant, who was once loyal to Margot, brings her information in exchange for small favors. Through this servant, Margot learns about the poisoning. She learns about Isabella's game. She learns that the girl has systematically destroyed the man who was once Margot's lover. Then something shifts in Margot's heart. It is not sympathy. It is not forgiveness. It is something darker: recognition. She recognizes in Isabella a woman willing to do what Margot herself was never willing to do. A woman willing to become a monster to exact vengeance. Margot realizes that she is being held prisoner not by the king, but by Isabella. And that realization is almost worse than execution. 4 months after becoming empress, Isabella announces she is pregnant again. The king's reaction is explosive. He weeps, he laughs, he pulls her close and holds her like she might dissolve. He says,
A son. You will give me a son. The future of the empire. The most beautiful heir ever born.
But this time, Isabella sees something different in his eyes. Yes, he is happy, but underneath the happiness, there is a darkness that wasn't there before. There is a calculation. There is the look of a man wondering what he can do with this child, whether the child will be beautiful enough to play with. Whether the child will have Isabella's submission or his own sadism, Isabella feels her blood run cold. That night, she lies awake beside the king and makes a decision that will haunt her for the rest of her life. She will carry this child to term. She will allow the king to believe it is his. She will allow him to prepare for fatherhood, to plan the child's future, to imagine passing on his legacy, but she will never allow this child to be born into his hands. In the darkness, Isabella makes a promise to Eleanor.
Sister, I swear to you, if this child is a daughter, she will not suffer as you suffered. If this child is a son, he will not become like the man who destroyed you. I will ensure it, even if it costs me everything.
But even as she makes this promise, Isabella understands that she is becoming like the king. She is making decisions for others' lives. She is playing God with her own child. Isabella demands to be taken back to the torture chamber where Eleanor died. The king is hesitant. He understands that bringing her there is dangerous, but Isabella's command as empress cannot be refused. So the king escorts her personally, descending into the darkness of the dungeons that he created. As they descend, the sounds grow louder. Screams, moans, the unmistakable sounds of human suffering. When they reach the torture chamber, Isabella's breath catches. The chamber is lined with victims in various states of torture. Some are missing limbs. Some are covered in burns arranged in deliberate patterns. Some are arranged on apparatus that suggest methods of suffering so elaborate they must have taken years of design to perfect. The king says,
"This is my life's work. This is what I have built."
Isabella moves through the chamber slowly, examining each victim. She is looking for Eleanor. She expects to see her sister's corpse still hanging here, still suffering, still screaming. But Eleanor is not here. Eleanor has been cremated. Eleanor has been scattered to the four winds. The king points to a corner where scorch marks stain the stone.
"She was here, your sister. For 7 days, she was in this corner."
Isabella stares at the scorch marks. She tries to imagine Eleanor in that space, tied down, tortured, screaming. She tries to imagine her sister's final moments in this chamber. Isabella asks,
"Did she scream?"
The king's voice is clinical.
"For the first 3 days, yes. She screamed constantly. Her voice was beautiful when she screamed. After the 3rd day, she had no voice left. After that, she just made sounds. Animal sounds."
Isabella asks,
"Did you enjoy it?"
The king doesn't answer. Isabella repeats the question, her voice sharp as a blade.
"Answer me. Did you enjoy watching her break?"
The king finally admits.
"Yes, I did. At the time, I thought it was beautiful. I thought watching her break was the most beautiful thing I had ever witnessed. I thought her suffering was the highest art."
Isabella looks at him with such hatred that the king actually steps back, afraid of her for the first time since her coronation. Isabella speaks slowly, each word precise and deadly.
"Then I want to understand what you saw. I want to see what moved you so deeply. I want to comprehend the beauty you found in her suffering."
She gestures to the guards standing at attention.
"Bring me the men who tortured her. All of them. I want every soldier who laid hands on Eleanor. I want every guard who held her down. I want every physician who helped keep her alive through her torture. I want them all in this room."
The king's face goes pale.
"Isabella, no."
But Isabella is already walking toward the private chamber, the luxurious nest built inside a tomb, where the king used to come to enjoy the symphony of suffering from beyond the walls. The torture of the men who killed Eleanor is methodical and elaborate. Isabella watches every moment, her face expressionless. She has learned from the king's journals. She has studied his methods. She takes notes on what works, what causes the most suffering, what breaks a man's spirit most effectively. The king watches from the shadows and sees himself reflected back. He sees his own cruelty mirrored in his empress's eyes. He sees what he has created, not a lover, but a monster, and he understands that in poisoning her with his love, she has poisoned herself with his darkness. One of the men begs,
"Please, I was just following orders. I didn't want to do this."
Isabella responds without emotion.
"Eleanor was just a political pawn. She had no choice in being sent here. She had no choice in what happened to her. But she was kind to everyone. She was gentle, and you broke her anyway. So your obedience is no excuse."
The torture continues for hours. Isabella watches with the intensity of someone studying for an examination. She is learning what the king learned, that suffering is a language, that breaking a person requires precision, that there is an art to cruelty. By the end of the first day, one of the men is dead. By the end of the second day, another has lost consciousness permanently. By the end of the third day, the remaining men are begging for death rather than continued suffering. The king watches Isabella and realizes something that terrifies him. She is not doing this out of grief. She is not doing this to honor Eleanor's memory. She is doing this because she is beginning to understand the appeal of what he loved. She is beginning to taste the power of it. Lady Margot learns what is happening in the torture chambers from servants who bring her news in exchange for small favors. She learns that the Empress has ordered the torture of all those involved in Princess Eleanor's death. She learns that the Empress watches every moment. She learns that the Empress has become just as cruel as the king. Margot's face shifts through several emotions: fear, satisfaction, horrified recognition. She whispers to herself,
Good. Let her become like him. Let her understand what power really costs. Let her understand that to destroy a monster, you have to become a monster yourself.
Later, when Isabella visits Margot's tower chamber, Margot is ready. She has had months to prepare what she will say. Isabella enters, and Margot sees immediately. The Empress is exhausted. There is blood under her fingernails. Her eyes have the hollow quality of someone who has seen things that cannot be unseen. Margot's smile is cruel.
Your sister had a child, did you know that? Not quite 3 months along when the king tired of her. He made her lose it, brutally.
Isabella stops moving. Margot continues, her voice dripping venom.
He was curious about what her body would look like without the child, so he took it from her. He ripped it out of her with his own hands, laughing the entire time, telling her the child would be better off dead than born to a weak mother.
Isabella's hand goes to her own belly, the belly that carries the king's unborn child. Margot's smile becomes almost loving.
Did you know that your sister was carrying a prince? A male heir? The king killed an entire dynasty when he killed that child, all because he wanted to see what your sister looked like when she screamed.
Margot steps closer.
And you, Isabella, the child you're carrying, do you even know if it's really his? Or are you just as much a victim as Eleanor was?
Isabella signals the guards to take Margot back to her tower, but as they lead her away, Margot calls back.
You're becoming him, Isabella. Can't you see? You're becoming just like him, and you're going to create another version of what he created. The cycle continues. The darkness perpetuates.
Isabella stands alone in her private chambers, looking into a mirror. She barely recognizes herself. She is beginning to look like Eleanor, the same bearing, the same intelligence, but with a dangerous edge. Where Eleanor was kind, Isabella is cruel. Where Eleanor was merciful, Isabella is vengeful. Where Eleanor was good, Isabella is poison. She pulls out a letter she has written to her parents. It has sat in her desk drawer for months, sealed and addressed. She reads it again.
To my parents, by the time you read this, I will have completed my mission. Eleanor is avenged. The man who destroyed her is broken. The man who destroyed her is dependent on me for every breath. He cannot function without my presence. Every moment of his life is now torture, the torture of loving someone who despises him. But I wonder now, in the darkness of this palace, whether I have avenged Eleanor, or whether I have simply perpetuated her suffering. I wonder whether in destroying him, I have destroyed myself. Is there any part of me left that is still your daughter? Or am I just Eleanor's ghost, haunting this empire, wearing stolen flesh? I don't know the answer, and I'm afraid to find out. Love, Isabella.
She doesn't send the letter. She cannot. There is no going back now. She is too deep. She places her hands on her belly and whispers a prayer to Eleanor.
Sister, if you can hear me from wherever you are, forgive me. Forgive me for becoming like him. Forgive me for discovering that I enjoy his darkness. Forgive me for the child I'm carrying. I promise you this child will not be raised to be a monster. This child will be good. This child will be everything I am not.
But even as she makes this promise, Isabella understands that she is lying. She understands that she cannot protect this child from what has already been planted inside her. She understands that the king's darkness, combined with her own cursed nature, will create something unprecedented in this empire. That night, Isabella lies next to the sleeping king. She pulls a dagger from beneath her pillow, a small blade, sharp, designed for precision. She raises it over his chest. She whispers to Eleanor's spirit,
I could end him right now. I could drive this blade between his ribs and watch him understand, in his final moments, what Eleanor understood. That there is no escape. That there is no mercy for those who destroy the innocent.
She lowers the blade toward his heart. It stops an inch above his skin, hovering over the steady beating that keeps him alive. But if she kills him now, she loses everything. Her position, her power, her access to justice, her ability to make him suffer every single day for the rest of his life. She realizes that slow destruction is more satisfying than quick death. The king's eyes snap open. Isabella freezes, the knife still raised above his chest. The king looks at the blade, then at Isabella's face, then back at the blade. His voice is broken.
Isabella.
Isabella speaks.
I could have killed you 100 times. I've had 100 opportunities, 100 moments when no one would have stopped me, when no one would have known.
The king asks, his voice trembling.
Why haven't you?
Isabella's voice becomes almost gentle.
Because I'm not finished with you yet. Because death is too quick. Because you deserve to suffer for as long as you live.
She withdraws the blade and turns it on herself. In one fluid motion, she drives it toward her own belly. The king grabs her wrist.
No.
They struggle. The blade falls to the floor. Isabella collapses, sobbing so hard she cannot breathe.
I can't live with what I am. Eleanor was good. Eleanor was kind. Eleanor was mercy itself. And I'm poison. I'm cruelty. I'm darkness. I'm everything she was not.
The miscarriage happens suddenly and violently. Isabella wakes in the night with cramps that radiate from her center with such intensity that she cannot scream. She staggers from the bed, her nightgown soaking through with blood. The physicians are summoned in panic. They rush into her chamber and see immediately that there is nothing they can do. Isabella's body is rejecting everything: the pregnancy, the king's child, the future she had promised to protect. The blood pours out of her like a waterfall, and Isabella understands with absolute clarity she has lost control. The forces she set in motion have their own momentum. The king stands beside the bed holding Isabella's hand, whispering that they will have another child. They will have a dozen children. Everything will be fine. But Isabella's eyes are focused on something the king cannot see. She is looking at Eleanor. In the shadows of the chamber, Eleanor is standing, shaking her head slowly. Isabella's eyes are dying light. She squeezes the king's hand and speaks.
Your Majesty, the child.
The king says,
We'll have another child, I promise you.
Isabella interrupts, her voice suddenly cold.
No.
She grips his hand with surprising strength, her fingernails digging into his palm.
You owe me for Eleanor. You owe me for this child. You owe me for everything I have lost.
The king says,
I know. I will spend the rest of my life repaying you.
Isabella smiles, not a smile of joy, but a smile of acceptance.
Then we have an agreement.
In that moment, as her child bleeds out of her and onto the marble floor of the royal chamber, Isabella makes a final decision. She will spend the rest of the king's life making sure he understands exactly what Eleanor felt. She will spend the rest of her own life poisoning him both chemically and psychologically. She will ensure that every breath he takes is borrowed from her. She will become the embodiment of his debt. The king becomes ill with no clear diagnosis. He has headaches that are almost incapacitating. He has insomnia that lasts for days. He has fevers that come and go without pattern. He has a persistent cough that produces blood. He loses weight. His hair begins to fall out. Isabella watches him deteriorate with an expression that is impossible to read. The physicians cannot identify the cause. They offer theories. Perhaps it's the stress of empire. Perhaps it's the grief over the miscarriage. Perhaps it's a disease from the Eastern Territories. But Isabella knows the truth. She has escalated her poisoning. She has added a second poison to his tea, one designed to slowly destroy his nervous system. Then she has added a third poison, one designed to attack his organs one by one. One evening, the king asks Isabella,
Have you started the poisons again?
Isabella answers without hesitation, without shame.
Yes, but not the ones that made you love me. Those are finished. The first poison served its purpose. You are dependent on me now. The second poison is different. It is designed to slowly destroy your health, to ensure that by the time you die, you will have nothing but me. No hope but me. No reason to live but me.
She continues, her voice almost tender.
The third poison is the final touch. It will ensure that even after you die, your legacy dies with you, that you will not haunt this empire with the memory of your cruelty.
The king realizes the truth. Isabella has never stopped poisoning him. She will never stop. She has created a weapon that cannot be disarmed. She has become a force of nature, inevitable, unstoppable, inexorable. He asks,
How long until?
Isabella says,
Years, perhaps. I am not in a hurry. I want you to suffer slowly. I want you to have time to understand what you did to Eleanor. I want you to spend your final years completely dependent on me, unable to function without my presence.
The king becomes skeletal. His skin hangs loose on his frame. He breathes with difficulty, each breath requiring effort that seems to drain him further. He lies in bed, barely able to move, completely dependent on Isabella for everything. She feeds him. She bathes him. She changes his clothes. She reads to him. She is his entire world. One evening, the king asks Isabella a question that has haunted him for years.
Have you ever actually loved me? Or has it all been a performance? Have you ever felt anything for me besides hatred?
Isabella sits beside him and takes his hand. His hand is so thin, so fragile, like the hand of a bird that has forgotten how to fly. She speaks.
Every tear I shed was real. Every scream was real. Every moment of desire was real. I did not fake my feelings for you.
She pauses, allowing him to hope for a moment.
But it was all hate disguised as love. It was all revenge wearing the mask of passion. Every moment I said I loved you, I was remembering Eleanor. Every moment I touched you, I was calculating how best to destroy you. Every kiss was a promise of your destruction.
The king nods slowly, accepting this truth.
Then I deserve this death.
Isabella says,
You deserve far worse, but this will have to suffice.
The king closes his eyes and whispers something that might be a prayer, or might be a curse. Isabella cannot tell which. The king's decline accelerates. His organs fail one by one. His liver shuts down. His kidneys follow. His lungs begin to fill with fluid. The physicians are powerless. Isabella sits beside his bed day and night. She doesn't leave his side. She is there when he wakes. She is there when he sleeps. She is there when the pain becomes so intense that he begs for death. On the final night, the king reaches for Isabella's hand.
I'm sorry. For everything. For Eleanor. For you. I'm sorry.
Isabella doesn't respond. She simply holds his hand and watches him die. His final breath comes as a relief not for him but for everyone around him. The emperor who loved suffering so much has finally been released from it. Isabella sits beside his corpse holding his hand for hours. She doesn't cry. She doesn't celebrate. She simply sits in the darkness with the body of the man she spent years destroying. She whispers,
"You destroyed Eleanor. I destroyed you. The cycle is complete."
But even as she says it, she knows it's not complete. Nothing is complete.